Hey everyone, today's guest is Rou Reynolds, keyboardist and lead vocalist for the St. Albans, England electronic rock band, Enter Shikari. Together we break down the writing, recording, and inspiration behind the 2023 hit single, Please Set Me on Fire, taken from their brand new album, A Kiss for the Whole World. This is the band's 7th overall record, and the 2nd in a row to be produced by Rou. I asked him how he knew it was time to branch out and start producing his own records, and he basically said it was a long time coming, combined with the fact that he just didn't think anyone else could bring the ideas he had in his head to full fruition. The track is dense and layered, and the lyrical subject matter is not at all what I thought it was. Rou took a really isolating, dark period of his life, complete with writer's block, then rebounded and turned it around into the band's biggest song to date, with the full record going straight to number 1 on the UK albums charts, their first album to do so. And Rou was very complimentary towards Dan Lancaster, with whom he mixed the record with. As he should be, the sonics are massive. So for all this in a rattlesnake shake, don't you dare slither away.
Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast.
Rou, how's it going?
Hey, very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I understand you're in the great state of Texas as we speak.
We are indeed, yeah. Some finally having some days off after a bit of a intense run. Been doing lots of US festivals that we've never done before, so that's been amazing.
That's very cool. Speaking of U.S. festivals, I first became aware of you on the Warped Tour in 2011. Less Than Jake was out there with you guys that summer, traversing the U.S. And so impressed by you, my friend. So impressed that I bombed your dressing room in Interlaken, Switzerland, up in the Swiss Alps at the Greenfield Festival this past summer. I just walked straight in and I said, hey, I need someone from Enter Shikari to be on my podcast, and you were gracious enough, so I want to thank you for that.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, it's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to it. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
Very cool. Well, amazing career. The band formed in 1999. Your debut album, Take to the Skies, was released in March 2007. Second album, Common Dreads, in June 2009. Of course, in 2011, we just talked about the Warped Tour out there the whole summer with Less Than Jake. And then your third record, A Flash Flood of Color, in 2012. The Mind Sweep in 2015, and here's where it starts to get interesting. You did a record called The Spark in 2017 where you had a co-producer credit, and your last two records, Nothing Is True and Everything Is Possible from 2020, it's produced by yourself, as well as A Kiss for the Whole World, brand new record just came out in April of this year, produced by yourself as well. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's mad when you list them off like that. Like we've been going a long time. 7 studio albums is crazy. But yeah, I'm thoroughly grateful to still be doing this.
How did you get to the point where you're like, I'm confident enough in my producer skills to see a project through? You know, I've been doing this for a long time too. I know how to, dial up sounds and put things together, but I don't have that final decision-making within my band of saying, I'm going to helm and head this project. I lean on them a lot. How did you get to that point where you're like, I can do this. I'm going to steer the ship?
It took a very long time. Like, I'm quite a kind of diffident person. Like, I'm usually quite reluctant to take on new responsibilities. But I think there were so many examples for me where I had an idea and it required me sort of, yes, being at the helm, like sitting in that seat and like trying things. And because I wasn't in that seat with my hand on the mouse, or I didn't feel like quite in charge of the whole sound, that kind of bird's eye view of the project. I didn't kind of pipe up and talk about a specific idea. And so they're basically like, I kept on seeing like just little moments where like the song could have gone in a different direction or could have had a different sound or something, and it just didn't happen because I either stayed mute or, just didn't feel it was my place, sort of thing. And I'd produced electronic music as long as we'd been in the band, really. So I had like a bit of experience in producing. And I think, it got to the stage with Nothing Is True. It's such an ambitious album in its scope. It has such a broad array of instrumentation and textures and emotions that it's trying to convey. And I think because it was so ambitious, it needed the production side of it needed to come from my brain as well. Otherwise, I think it would have been diluted, like the sort of general idea. So I sort of felt that because I co-produced the previous album, The Spark, that had built my confidence up a bit and sort of, just finally took the leap, really. At that point, I suppose we were kind of 15 years into this, and I thought, it's kind of now or never. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And that's not to say that, I had a lot of help. I had assistants, I had engineers. So it was still a team effort for sure. But it was I think it just enabled the songs to become like real, just the best forms that they could be, and closest to the original form that I would have had in my head, when the first sort of little spark came.
Now, how was that with, getting the respect from your other band members and letting you steer this ship? Is that fine, or is that create tension? Because I know in my band, it gets very tumultuous sometimes.
I'm very lucky, I think, that they were extremely supportive, and sometimes I'll come to them with like demos that are really quite far along down the road. So they know I have like very intact visions of tracks. So I think they know I've got the kind of the ability to blossom a track, like in terms of its sonic breadth. And so it was, if anything, they were just like really encouraging of it. Because I think they'd also seen like moments where, we'd not ventured and explored routes that we perhaps would have if I was in control. Like I'm very, very fond of music as experimentation, music as exploration. We're curious as human beings. That's one of our kind of basic traits, isn't it, really? So I think anything that kind of brings that out and supports that, and music is something that you can just get lost in the flow state, or whatever people like to call it, and you can really just get back into that almost naive, pure, wholesome curiosity state. So anything that kind of brings that forward is something that we all just love being in music for.
Well, it sounds to me, I think you took a roundabout nice way of saying that your band respects you. They trust your instincts. They're letting you guide this, and that's awesome. That's a great relationship to have when you're working together and trying to create something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like we've got to the stage now where we've all kind of slipped into like extra roles and all have like extra things to do. So we've all got those things to concentrate on. So like, for instance, Chris, our bassist, is kind of head of the live show in terms of the synths and the MIDI setup and all, kind of the technicals of that. And, everyone sort of has these extra jobs, and my extra job seems to have become producer. So, yeah. That's
awesome. Well, a couple more things. Is the song titled Please Set Me on Fire? Because it's PLS in parentheses.
Yes, absolutely. It's these bloody kids and their internet speech, isn't it?
That's what it looks like to me. Well, this song was released simultaneously with the announcement of the new record in January of this year. A Kiss for the Whole World was released on April 21st of 2023, went straight to #1 on the official UK albums charts, your first record to do so. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very surreal. We were super happy. We got told as we were boarding a plane to America where no one gives a shit. So it was a very strange experience where we were like super hyped and like finally, we've got #1.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. You're very humble in saying that. You're still over here 24 years into your career, trying to make a name for yourself in the States. But let me tell you, for everybody listening, if you haven't, go check out Enter Shikari, go to YouTube, look at the videos. I've seen you live over in Europe and England. It's as massive as you get. Okay, so these Americans need to get their heads together and support you fully. But I want to get into this song. It's 3 minutes and 4 seconds, and you talked about texture, and you talked about, I think you said depth, and and layers of instruments. Man, this is about as full as it gets. And this song takes you on a ride. Nothing quite sounds like what you put together here, Rou. It's really interesting. The intro is like this backwards shh, like cymbal right off the top into a vocal of "Please Set Me on Fire." Very slick and huge sounding, tons of lead and backing harmonies on this vocal. A drum loop and a synth is running underneath for 7 bars. Then 8 bars of a blown out sounding loop of drums and swirling synthesizers. Bunch of vocal swells and swirls happening here.
Please set me on fire.
This part sounds very prog rock, almost like 70s Yes to me. Were you into Yes at all?
I definitely know that my uncle had cut a few of those records, and I used to root through his collection. Yeah, every weekend.
I love Yes, and I hear that crazy synth part that's happening
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
It's very. It reminds me of that era, and I didn't know if that was an influence at all there.
Yeah, I think that sort of era where, people were pioneering like different types of synthesis, that must have been one of the most exciting times to be in music, where they had these big, hardware keyboards, modular synths, and it must have been so exciting. And yeah, therefore there was some incredibly exciting music being made.
I will tell you, this song, when you get through the first chorus, and we're going to get there, you're about halfway through the song. And when I got to the end of the song and I'm at the third chorus, I wanted the song to continue. It didn't feel like it was 3 minutes and 4 seconds. It's strange how the arrangement did that to me. And on subsequent listens, I had the same feeling, the way that this song's arranged. I think it's arranged brilliantly. On the 7th bar of this prog rock part I'm talking about, full production comes in. Big drums, synth pads, stereo guitars, bass, a moving synth hook. This goes on for 16 bars. On bars 8 and bars 16 of this, you got these octave guitars that are accenting there. I think that is just killer. And there's another backward cymbal here that then takes us into verse 1. This whole intro is the chorus progression. I gotta ask, did you do a demo for this song, and did anything change from what I just listed out this intro?
Oh yeah, there was definitely a demo. It was actually like the first song I wrote for the record. And I remember, I think it basically blossomed out of that chorus progression, which is, the sort of palm muted chugs of the guitar, just playing that chord progression. And I remember finding a synth that just kind of fitted with that guitar so neatly. Like often it's quite hard, going into sort of production world here, but finding synths and guitars that work well together, because they're often taking up the kind of the same range and the frequency spectrum.
Same frequency, yeah.
Yeah, and this, it was almost like, I don't know, I'll be interested to see what you think. Like, there is a synth that's doing exactly the same thing as that chordal guitar, but it sort of sounds like it's just a guitar, but it's thickened up beautifully, especially in the stereo image by this synth. And that it sounded so powerful when they were playing together. It was immediately inspiring.
I thought those were just guitars. So there is a synth there ghosting those. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And as soon as they were playing together, and we tried out like different chord sequences, but this one, just the rising nature of this one, it just felt so exciting. And so, I think that certainly that the chorus thing would have been in there. I don't know whether would have started the same way. I think we wanted to bring out that kind of manic synth riff, which is why it starts with that sort of lo-fi intro where the guitar is actually tapping the riff as well. And I just love that. It's sort of like it feels like quite hectic. It's just like a really intense start.
It is. You use the term manic. That synth part is very manic. I gotta ask, did I leave anything out here in the intro? And is there some kind of subtones running underneath too that I'm hearing?
Yeah, when it drops into the chorus, there's a whole a metric ton of sub in there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's what's giving it that thick, low growl. You can't just get those with guitars or synths. It's gotta be something more there. And it just sounds so deep and layered right at that part.
I think it needed like extreme power, like because we kind of grew up with one leg in the hardcore punk scene, but also one leg in like the London electronic music scene, which had drum and bass. We watched dubstep grow from its very early beginnings in South London. We had so we had house, we had UK garage, all these different influences, and so sub bass has become a pretty consistent in our music. A lot of people in the rock scene will have like sub drops, when they're entering a breakdown or something. But
sure.
But for us, it's like, I do sort of view our music as dance music, but played by a punk outfit. So yeah, so having that rumble throughout a chorus or throughout some sort of big section is key for us, really.
Waiting for your signal, waiting for a sign, looking upward, away from the divine. Won't you come down? Won't you come down? Reify yourself, be my fire lily on the blackened ground.
Waiting for your signal, waiting for a sign, looking upward. I wait for the divine. Won't you come down? Won't you come down? And reify yourself. Be my fire lily on the blackened ground. I have no idea what's going on here.
Well, basically, it's all about yearning. The divine I'm sort of evoking is the transcendency of music, of creativity, of human connection, basically everything that I lost during the pandemic and during lockdowns and not being able to play shows. I had a very strange experience as I was there, during the lockdown, scrolling through social media, seeing all my peers like in the studio being super productive and, making the most of their time off tour. I found that I couldn't write music at all. And I've subsequently found some people who had the same experience retrospectively, which has been really interesting to speak with them. But at the time, I felt like sort of quite alone with that. And I didn't actually write any music for a year and a half, which is mad. I've written music since I was 10, 11 years old, really. So it was a very disorientating time. And this was like the first song that I wrote after we started playing shows again. And I realized that one of the main reasons why I'd sort of just completely dried up and become unable to write music was because I didn't have that sense of human connection, that sense of transcendency and purpose of the live show.
Yeah.
So that's what that first verse there and the whole song really is all about. Just, please set me on fire. It sounds like the cryings of a madman. Like what? Why?
You were kind of going mad. I mean, think about it. Your whole life had been uprooted. Everything that you knew, your career, how to have income, everything was turned upside down. I don't think there was any gray line here, Rou. I either had musician friends that, as you said, were just completely productive, hit the gas pedal and just went for it and made the most of their off time. And then there was a lot of guys who were just depressed and had a really difficult time. I will tell you, the older I get, I think everything happens for a reason. And you wrote a banger here after a year and a half, so not all is lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm so glad that came out of it. I think it's interesting in this song. There's two sort of, for me, there's two main emotions. There's the absolute yearning for all those things that I'd missed, and there's a real anxiety within that yearning as well. Like, you know, at one point I was like, am I ever going to be able to write music again? And hopefully in the sort of manic synths that we were talking about, hopefully you can hear that twinge of like neuroticism that's just like, oh God, am I actually?
Now that you mention it, I hear a real sense of urgency.
Yes. Yeah. And I think as well, that probably touches on the other emotion for me, which is just pure excitement. Because when we actually started recording this properly, and I was like refining the lyrics and things, the sense of joy, the sense of like reconnecting, you know, with my band members, with the band, with feeling like we were a band again, it was a thrill. It was a thrill to write. And hopefully that sort of thrilling nature comes out in that sort of sense of urgency that you get from the music.
You know, it's crazy. The first song that I'd write for a record, that's never been the single. In fact, a lot of times it doesn't even make the record because it was just the first start of the process. And here you are, first song you wrote out of a 18-month drought, and you get this. Yeah,
it's weird. For the first few albums, that was certainly the way. But then for some reason, the last 3 albums, the first track, you know, I'm always like writing a few tracks at a time, but one of those like initial offerings of music has ended up being the first single every time. So Live Outside on the Spark and Dreamers Hotel on the Nothing Is True and Everything's Possible. So yeah, it's very, very strange. But yeah, I guess it just, if you're so excited by the first track, it just like propels the whole, you know, journey of the album forward as a creator.
Couple more things before we move on. Dan Lancaster was credited as mixing this record. He's worked with 5 Seconds of Summer, Bring Me the Horizon, and Muse, to name a few. The mix sounds incredible. How closely do you work with Dan in the mixing process? Are you there through the whole thing, or you kind of let him do his thing?
Yeah, no, we'll be there. He actually lives really close to us, and we've known him for a while, and he's an absolute legend. Incredibly talented songwriter, singer, and a brilliant mixer. I remember the first draft he sent through, and I don't think we sent the track to anyone else as well. I think we knew for this one that we wanted Dan, because he mixed a few tracks on the previous album as well, and he has just a real knack for, you know, getting that last like 10-20% of excitement into a song. You know, the way he deals with drum compression, I think specifically, is just incredible. He just brings things to life. And yeah, from that first draft, we were like, yes, he's nailed it. And from then on, it was just like small refinements, you know.
Well, speaking of the drums, are these analog drums? I'm not talking about, you know, having some samples or triggers on them, but was this actually played? It wasn't all loops?
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely played. There's like samples. I also like, without getting too geeky, like drum design, especially with snares. So I often like adding transient pops and like sort of bits of white noise for like hisses, and you know, but basically augmenting the initial snare with various types of synthesis. And making sure that, you know, it's the tunings are there and the spikes are in the right places and stuff. But yeah, it is all real initially. And it was recorded in I don't know how to describe this, but it's like a dilapidated barn that was on the side of this farmhouse, which is where we recorded. And it was all, where we recorded was completely off grid. It was in the middle of nowhere on the south coast of England. And yeah, Rob, as soon as we got there, he was like, oh, I want this to be my drum barn. And, you know, the ceiling is like kind of on the wonk. It looks like this place is about to cave in, and there's like ivy and other kind of plants that have like grown into the building and coming in the ceiling. It's like this quite beautiful, eerie place. But it had a great sound to it and a great amount, like just the right amount of like reverberation that you'd want for like a big, powerful drum sound. So we got quite lucky with that.
I feel like you, transported me there. I can smell cow manure all of a sudden. I don't know. A lot going on in verse 1. I want to talk to you about the first 2 lines here that you sing. Overdriven stereo guitars and vocals only for the first 2 lines, separated by a kick drum crash and a bass guitar stab. The band is in on the line looking upward, very energetic. There's like a pushed feel here with the drums, the bass, and the stereo guitars. The lead vocals are very aggressive. Are the vocals doubled?
I think they were, yes. I would say, almost all the aggressive vocals are usually double, so I would have thought they would have been, yeah.
That's what it sounds like. I love what happens on the line, I Wait for the Divine. Chris Batten, your multi-instrumentalist who plays synths, keys, and does backing vocals as well as he's the bassist. He does the harmony on that line, but then he does, it sounds like definitely the lead on Won't You Come Down and Won't You Come Down Again.
Looking upward, away from the divine. Won't you come down? Won't you come down? Reify yourself, be my fire lily on the blackened ground.
Is he also doing the harmonies on those lines, or is the harmony you there?
Wait, so on the lines that he's doing the mains?
So on I Wait for the Divine, he's doing the backing vocals there. That's you singing that line.
Yeah.
And then he sings Won't You Come Down twice in a row. It sounds like he's the lead on that, but
Yes.
is he also doing the backing harmonies on that?
God, I can't remember.
Great answer. That's fine. That's fine.
I know I'm doing the sort of, I think it might be him because I'm just doing the kind of shouty and spoken stuff in those verses. So he's doing all the harmonies.
It's such a strange part, strangely beautiful. All of a sudden, the backing vocalist comes in the middle of a verse, out of nowhere, but it works.
Yeah, there was like a real concerted effort to have more of Chris like up front on this album because he's had some struggles with his voice over the last quite a few years now, and he really made some progress over the last few years. Well, the last 2 years or whenever we started making this record. And yeah, so I really wanted to get his voice in there because he's got such an awesome voice and it's so brilliantly sort of just sits with mine. And we've got completely different voices, but they work like really well together. And so when he comes in, it's like a sort of breath of fresh air, or it's like a new door opening, it's just like, it really works. But we really wanted to get him doing some mains in there as well.
I don't know if you consciously thought this, but it reminded me when I'm listening to this is like all of a sudden 2 people are kind of conversing, having a conversation. That's the vibe I got. I really like it. You say reify yourself, and then the last 2 lines, Be My Fire Lily and On the Blackened Ground, we get harmonies on those lines as well. And on the last line, On the Blackened Ground, on, there's like a rattlesnake shaker that happens there. That happens a couple times in the song with some delay on it.
On the blackened ground.
I talk about this a lot in the show. It's just it's a little hook within the song. I think it's really cool. Little flourish.
Yeah, I think so. It's a synth and some percussion.
Oh, it is a synth too. Okay.
Yeah. It's like
I call it the rattlesnake.
Yeah, it's like on a really fast envelope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those little bits of ear candy, just like to kind of boost certain lines of lyrics or certain moments. And the last lyrics of those verses are possibly some of the most important on, I was going to say the track, but possibly the album. The album artwork is the fire lily. I just became completely enamored with this species of plant which only grows after a forest fire. So when you have this completely blackened landscape where just everything's charred and dead, there's some chemical reaction that happens within the soil that triggers the seeds that have sometimes been lying under the soil for like decades. This is I think it's native in South Africa, and there's some other parts in the world. There's this specific fire lily that then grows, and it's this beautiful red, orange, bright thing. And it's such a great metaphor for life, really. Like when things seem at their utter worst, there's always hope. There's always a chance for, something positive to grow out of a dark period.
I love that you described that, because that you basically went scorched earth for 18 months, and this is what came out of it. I love the metaphor there. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you.
Very cool. Well, pre-chorus 1.
In the city on a quiet night, you can hear us set ourselves alight. Oh, let me transcend and be a flicker in your eyes. Wait for the spark. I'm no good at goodbyes.
In the city on a quiet night, you can hear us set ourselves alight. Oh, let me transcend and be a flicker in your eyes. Wait for the spark. I'm no good at goodbyes.
It starts off with really what is a setting the scene, or like an explanation of, for me, live music. Setting myself alight in that respect is the transcendency of live shows. It's that feeling of human connection that I missed and yearned for in this song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in this verse, there's perhaps like an extra sense of almost, it feels like a bit more fatalistic when it comes a second time, you know, because we've had the screeching vocals in the first verse, and it's coming back again. It's like, oh God, are we getting anywhere, sort of thing. You know, that's what it felt. You know, we had these like lockdown, and then there was like a glimmer of hope, and another lockdown, and yeah. So I think that it was just a way of getting that sense of extreme darkness. You know, when it's like you've had a few what you thought were glimmers of like coming out the other side. Yeah, and of course this could be extrapolated to any scenario for anyone, really. It often happens that way when you think like, oh, am I through this difficult period of my life, this period of adversity, and then it's like, oh no, I'm not. You're slapped back, you're straight back in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it felt like it was important to keep up that energy for the second verse there.
There's no sign of stormy weather. I could kidnap the sky.
Hey, don't go anywhere. We got lots more with Rou Reynolds coming right up after a few words from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Pete's. Few things start your day better than a good coffee. That's why Pete's hand roast their coffee from a specific selection of high-quality beans. And they don't just put those beans into anyone's hands. Pete's trains their roasters for 10,000 hours so they can master the roast that gives you the most. Pete's Coffee. Coffee for coffee people. Find Pete's online or at your local retailer.
We'll be fighting on the front line.
And now, back to the show.
Well, I love this part. It feels like a scene change to me, and I feel like I'm listening now to an English band. It's this part, you can hear your accent a little more. The vocals are sung an octave lower. Very English new wave 80s feel here, kind of. That's what I'm hearing in this part. The production tucks down a bit here from the verse. The stereo guitars are played more staccato, along with the bass and the drums. On line 2 and line 4, there's this cool synthesizer doing these swells. I love it. It's just there. There's no backing vocals in the pre-chorus. On Goodbye in the last line, we get a pick slide buried off to the right. I couldn't tell what it was at first. It's really, really tucked in the mix, but I love how it works there. And on the last line, the synth part running underneath this line, but it's not as loud in the mix as lines 2 and 4. So again, you know, talking about the mixer, Dan Lancaster, and yourself, when you went to mix this, those synth lines on line 2 and 4 in pre-chorus 1 here. So that'd be on the line On a Quiet Night, and on the line Set Ourselves Alight. The synth is pretty up in the mix, but on that last line, it's tucked. I love little things like that.
In the city on a quiet night, you can hear us set ourselves alight. Oh, let me transcend and be a flicker in your eyes. Wait for the spark. I'm no good at goodbyes.
I find, like, you know, things like that, they sort of breathe life into the song. If the dynamics are just too static and too predictable, the song doesn't feel alive. And, you know, so if you have those kind of ebbs and flows of volume or of distance, or, you know, whatever sort of parameter it is you're playing with, it just, it keeps it like moving and keeps it breathing.
When I talk to bands that have a production like this, and the only thing I can ever compare it to is what I do musically. And this isn't a knock on my band, but we're a punk band. We got one guitar, we're a bass, we don't run tracks, we're just a live band, we go out and do our thing. I know how to record my band. I know, we're going to do a little overdub here or an octave part, but putting something like this song together, when do you know enough's enough? There's so much going on here. And again, you're sitting in the producer's chair. When do you know this song's done? I got to stop cooking this monster.
I mean, that is, pretty notorious for being one of the hardest aspects of songwriting or production, isn't it, really?
I mean, something this big. There's a lot here.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure. It's not like I have a system in place, and I've are all my boxes checked? Okay, send it to the printers,
Right.
It's I suppose it's very instinctual. And, I think there's even a quote, isn't there? It's like a true piece of art is never finished. It's abandoned. And I've always quite liked that.
I like that.
Yeah, it sort of takes the pressure off. It's instead of asking yourself, is this work finished? You ask yourself, am I ready to abandon this? Has it grown to its a stage where you feel comfortable letting it out into the world by itself, like it's your child. So I think it's quite instinctual. If it gives me a sort of feeling of wholeness, then I feel that it's done. And sometimes, there's the odd occasion where I'll start mixing it or send it to the mixer, even when I don't have that feeling of wholeness. And sometimes that will appear in the mixing process. And I was like, oh, that's what I needed. I just needed it to be mixed, So it's, it's difficult.
Awesome. Well, chorus 1 comes right off of pre-chorus 1. I want to be ash in the atmosphere. Please set me on fire. Set me on fire. Can you strike a match? Make me disappear. Please set me on fire. Set me on fire. Same instrumentation as the intro. Halftime feel super heavy. On lines 2 and 4, please set me on fire. Set me on fire. It's the same line both times. There's falsetto on the first set me on fire on each of those lines. Very cool. That falsetto up an octave. I really like that. And again, was that something that you heard in your head from the demo stages, or did you come up with that in the studio?
I think it was something that evolved, because I know I tried this in a few different keys. There are possibly multiple demos of this song in different keys, because I didn't quite know where it would sit best in terms of my vocal range. Often when I'm deciding key, there's a bit of a fight between what's best for vocals and what's best for sub. So that they're often completely different keys. And I think luckily over the last few years, I've had a bit more confidence of putting falsetto as main. We've always had like falsetto harmonies ever since the first album, but there was always like a reluctance. I don't know what it was, like some kind of subconscious machoism that was like, oh, you can't have falsetto as your main vocal. Mm-hmm. Something silly like that. But now I think we've got to a stage with certainly the last 2 albums or so, or probably 3 actually, where I don't care. For me, the vocal is a vocal. It's a voice.
It's so much stronger than just a harmony. And there's a harmony on every line here in the chorus, but it's so much stronger than just a harmony. It really sticks out on those 2 lines in particular. And it just, I don't know, it does something there. I think it's really, really cool. Again, we get harmonies on every line in the chorus, and then we're straight into verse 2.
I'm sick of being broken. I'm sick of being bruised. I'm a quarry, deserted and disused. Won't you come down? Won't you come clear my state of mind? Be my excavator and tell me what you find.
I'm sick of being broken. I'm sick of being bruised. I'm a quarry, deserted and disused. Won't you come down? Won't you come down? Be my excavator and tell me what you find.
At that point, we're crossing over from yearning to desperation.
The first two lines here in verse 2 are reminiscent of the first two lines in verse 1, except this has a killer synth and like these pre-delayed vocals kind of swirling around from the left or right speaker there. I really like dynamically what that does. On the line, I'm a quarry. The band is back in. And something interesting on the fourth line here, Rou, deserted and disused. There's no harmony. On verse 1, on the line, I wait for the divine, there's a harmony there. Was there a reason there's no harmony here? Didn't sound good, or you just didn't put one, or didn't think about it?
I think it was to basically really put forward the idea of feeling alone, deserted and disused. You're in this by yourself. There's no help. There's no support from backing vocals, basically. And that's how often any type of adversity feels. If you're in the sort of stage where you're not opening up about it, you can feel extremely isolated. And that's when I think desperation does set in, because if there's one thing worse than going through a hardship, it's going through that hardship alone. So I think it was just, to heighten that sense of isolation.
I love that. I talk about that a lot on this show. And a lot of times it'll be the end of a song. You'll have harmonies all through the last chorus. And then there's this very poignant, heartfelt lyric that the vocalist just sings by himself at the end of the song, because it has to be by itself. It's personal. I'm really glad that's the case here, that you said that. That's really cool. And I think the line is better for it. The next two lines, Won't You Come Down, again, sung by Chris. And then there's harmonies on Be My Excavator and Tell Me What You Find. Same instrumentation here as verse 1, but now we're joined by an underlying synth part. And again, swirling delayed vocals in this part, not just on the first two lines, but this whole part. And then we get a great synth swell into the bridge. We also get another rattlesnake here on the last line. And Tell Me What You Find. You get that rattle percussion synth sound again.
Yeah, it's again just full of life, trying to keep it move forward before it cuts out into the final verse where it all breaks down.
What you find in the city on a quiet night, you can hear us set ourselves alight. Oh, let me transcend and be a flicker in your eyes. Wait for the spark.
I mentioned a little bit earlier on chorus 1, that goes through from a minute 8 to about, a minute 40 or so. So you're halfway through the song. Then you get into verse 2, but you don't get the traditional pre-chorus after verse 2. It goes to what I'm calling a bridge, but it's the same lyrics as the pre-chorus, except for you don't get the I'm no good at goodbyes at the end. It's brilliant here how this part is essentially a pre-chorus, but now it's a different part. I'm calling it the bridge. Again, same lyrics. In the city on a quiet night, you can hear us set ourselves alight. Oh, let me transcend and be a flicker in your eyes. Wait for the spark. But we don't get the I'm no good at goodbyes there. Keys, synth, I'm calling it a wind sound. It's very atmospheric and spacey that's happening here. Sounds like a single guitar is strumming underneath it all. And there's a really haunting vocal here. No harmonies at all. And we don't get any drums until we get a drum fill on the last line, Wait for the Spark, that leads us into chorus 3. How did this part come about? You're using the same lyric, but it's in a completely different context and feel.
Yeah, I think it was about accentuating the sense of isolation, the sense of desperation. It has when it's in that lower octave, and when it's also the verse that we've had before that was in the lower octave is quite projected. It's still, there's energy to it. Whereas this, it feels very vulnerable. It feels, very isolated, and has a sort of pleading nature to it. It's like the desperation has been sucked out of it, and there's like no energy left. It's now just, it's very weak. And I think it was important to get that across, because that's truthful to the experience. I think, you don't always feel negative emotions which are sort of energized, like desperation, anger, fury.
Yeah.
Sometimes the emotions are just complete vulnerability. And so, I think as well, like there's a sort of romanticism about the picture that I'm describing there, again, going back to the idea of live music in the city, it conjures this image that I'm sure we all have, of this romanticized image of the show, this place where we come together, where we forget our worries, where it's all about human connection, it's about creativity, it's about community. I feel very passionate about, like, that's the reason why I do music, to bring people together in a world that's incredibly divisive and tribalistic. So yeah, it was important just to make this verse kind of hyper emotional, really.
Awesome. Well, chorus 3, okay. You get "Please Set Me on Fire" alone, just like the top of the song. And on fire, the band comes back in, and then you say, "Please set me on fire" again. No other chorus in the song starts like this, but I'm calling it the chorus. I don't know what else you would say this part is. I love this, though. It's the only 2 times in the song, barring the time at the top of the song, that this happens by itself. I think it's really neat. It wasn't overdone. It makes you want to hear it over and over, to me.
Yeah, it feels like a real culmination of all the, a cocktail of emotions that we felt that just explode at that point.
Wait for the spark. Please set me on fire.
I can remember, like, when we were recording, it was just like, oh God, I can't wait for this bit live, and to be playing that now for most of the year. It's still like such one of my favorite moments of the set, for sure.
Something about this arrangement, like I said, when I get to chorus 3, it seems like it's only been a minute and a half. It doesn't seem like it's almost a 3-minute song at that point. I don't know what it is here, why that tricks my brain into feeling that way. But again, on subsequent listens, it keeps doing the same thing. On the second line, "Please Set Me on Fire," there's a super high note on fire that you go to. You're just reaching there and kind of building this last chorus. I think that's awesome. We get another rattlesnake rattle here and a great synth part, which leads us into a double chorus here. Same lyrics the first time. And on the last line, "Please set me on fire, set me on fire," we get a backing vocal that says, "Please set me on fire," that holds out under the next line, "I want to be ash in the atmosphere." We get another full chorus. On the second line of the second half of the chorus here, it's slightly different melody, and there's no "please set me on fire" there. And the same thing on line 4. We get a different melody.
I'm done with being polite by that point. Clearly.
Yeah. There's no candy coating this. You're aggravated at this point. Then the band all hit a 1, 2, 3, 4 together. They all end together, and it fades out with a moving synth hook and the hum and noise of amps and instruments kind of crackling as we fade out. It's awesome, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was an absolute joy to make this one. Your kind words and your picking it apart is awesome. So yeah, thank you.
What's the reception been like? And not just in your home country of England. I know it's going to be through the roof there, but you mentioned you're in the States right now. When you play this song, what kind of reaction is it getting? Because it's a new song. When you go out and play new songs, either they're great the first time you play them, and sometimes you're like, why isn't this connecting?
Yeah. Well, we've been quite bold, I think, really. We've been opening up most of our sets with it. Certainly on our side shows, some of the festivals we've been switching it up, but it's interesting because like it definitely hits, and it's great to see everyone, like people singing along. Like that's, you know, from the outset of a set, that's what you want. You want to be like bombarded with people like passionately singing along, and we've had that. But because it's like vocally, it's really challenging, and certainly in the verses for the guys, the guitar and bass lines are challenging as well. So for us, it's actually quite a static song. Like there's not a lot of like physical energy we can put into it because we're concentrating so much. So in that respect, it's quite interesting as well, because we come out, and often, you know, people expect it to be an immediate explosion of energy at an Enter Shikari show, but it's nice to be able to sort of showcase this song and just concentrate on the melodies and have people singing along, and not be like encouraging, you know, like a wild mosh pit from the outset. So it's actually been really nice, and we enjoy it so much, like playing it. So yeah, it's been great.
I love your sound, and I love where you've continued to push and take this band. I mean, you're helming the projects now as producer. It's awesome, and it was a pleasure breaking down this song. I want to thank you for sitting in with us today. And before we break, what do you got for everyone listening? What's next for Enter Shikari?
Well, we're just about to go to Mexico and play some headline shows for the first time, so we're super excited about that. And then we're just a load more touring. We've got a few tracks that we're working on. I'm actually going to head back up into my room and head on and try and make some music today. And we're working on coming back to America in, I think it's April next year. We're just finalizing the dates for that. So yeah, super pumped to be coming back and doing a bit more of a proper tour, because this one's just been basically a few festivals and then some linking shows together. So it's a bit of a half-assed tour, this one. It's only been 2 weeks. So we're looking forward to attempting to traverse the extent of your wonderful country once more. Yeah.
Love it. Well, best of luck and safe travels to you and the guys.
Thank you so much for having me. Like, as well, you're an absolute legend, band. Like, we're all big fans. Like, so many memories, like, intertwined with your music. So, yeah, thank you for the music, as ABBA once said.
Take the high pressure. Failure isn't our treasure. It powers the future endeavor. When we take on the world together. Unless you fight the inevitable, you'll never know if it truly was. So let's fight it! It hurts every time we fall.
Hey everybody, I hope you all enjoyed that conversation with Rou Reynolds, and I gotta chime in with my 2 cents here. Enter Shikari is a band that I've heard of for a long time but never actually heard, and in preparation for this episode, I listened to this album, A Kiss for the Whole World, and it is unbelievable. I've listened to it every day since we recorded this. I can't recommend it highly enough. Go check it out. Enter Shikari, A Kiss for the Whole World. It's amazing. And don't go anywhere. We got lots more Chris DeMakes a Podcast coming right up after a few words from our sponsors.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock MBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.
Hey, it's Chris DeMakes a Podcast producer, Chris Fafalius. Will you do me a favor real quick? Go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe to One Hit Thunder. It's the show that I host with my good buddy Matt Kelly, where we have guests from the world of music and comedy and art, and together we dive deep into a band or artist that people consider a one-hit wonder and decide if they brought the thunder or were just a blunder. You'll laugh, you'll learn, maybe you'll get mad at us. Who knows? We have an enormous back catalog that includes episodes about Eagle-Eyed Cherry, Stacy Q, Looking Glass, The Weather Girls, Tag Team, Four Non-Blondes, Martika, Krayshawn, Sixpence None the Richer. I could go on, but how about you just subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your pods and experience the fun for yourself.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes a Podcast, all you have to do is email your best song via MP3 only and a short bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured artist is Teenage Waitress, a solo project from Southampton, England's Daniel J. Ash. In Ash's own words, Teenage Waitress is a collection of short stories about other people set to what I hope are some instantly hummable tunes. Here's a snippet of their song, Gray Sky.
Underneath the gray sky, I do believe it's alright. You never hit the big time. I do believe that's alright. You never made the headlines. Your name was never in lights. But underneath the gray sky, I can hold you good.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
So Chris, Enter Shikari is a band that I've heard of for a really long time, but never actually heard. But in preparation for this episode, man, this album is awesome. I told Rou this the second we got off of the call here. It's so good. I've been running to it every day. It gets me fired up. It's right up my alley of inventive and interesting music that I love. This is great. I'm so glad that Chris DeMakes a Podcast exposed me to a new band that I love.
And you've done the same for me on this show, Chris, and I appreciate that. I always love that when I come into something and you're super stoked and excited and I don't really know the artist or haven't heard the song as much as you have. Same thing here. I've known about this band for a long time. When I reconnected with them in Europe this past summer, and just the reaction that this band gets live, it is incredible. Okay, one of the best live acts. Not just saying that. Great band and inventive.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah.
Pushing the envelope of music. I love it.
Yeah, they don't really sound like anybody.
No.
And I think that's really cool. Rou said that he views their music as dance music, but played in a punk outfit, which I totally see. When I listen to this, Chris, it reminds me of being in England and going out to a club. And not that it's as heavy as Enter Shikari is, but it has that vibe. It puts me in that place. Does that make sense? It makes me feel like I'm there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's moments in this song, too, where I mentioned, I think it was pre-chorus 1 in the song where it goes to the lower vocal. It's very, very 80s, new wave English sounding.
Yes.
You know, it's got that quality. It does make me feel like I'm, like you said, in a pub after the show listening to some band on the PA.
And I love when the accent comes through in the vocals. Do you know there's some British bands where you can't even hear the accent in it? I like when you can hear it. It's why I love The Streets so much. I love hearing that in there for some reason. And also, man, you know I love that low end, and I love sub bass. I love the drops. I love stuff like that. I love it when it shakes my car. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not much of a treble guy. I'm such a bass guy. It makes sense that I'm a bassist because I love that in their music as well.
Yeah, the thickness of this intro, the chorus part, with what they're doing with those low subs and the synths there. And I didn't know, and that's why I asked them if there was subtones going on, because I didn't know if the guitars were taken and then kind of manipulated and blown out on their own. And I think it was a combination of everything. And I'm just still amazed. And I had asked him, a song like this, when is enough?
Yeah.
I put stereo guitars in a Less Than Jake song. I got a right and left speaker going of, some good rhythm guitars, maybe an overdub in the chorus, another guitar up the middle. You know your sound. I know the confines of my sound. Something like this, it'd be very difficult to know when to stop for me.
Yeah, I'll say. I mean, he brought up, because you kept talking about the rattlesnake sound, he called it ear candy. That's a common thing that you'll hear. Little things that accentuate things in songs, little things that grab your ear. I wouldn't know when to stop with the ear candy, especially in a song like this. You could just keep going, and not only keep going, but you could keep switching things out, and so many different things are going to sound cool. So yeah, it is a real challenge, and it's really impressive that he stepped up as the producer of this too, because sometimes you need that outside producer to rein you in.
Yeah, I've had producers say, why are you trying to, put a square in a round hole or whatever? You're trying to shove a guitar part in here. The song's done. What are you doing? You step back from it and you're able to, pause for a moment and say, yeah, he's right. But, who edits you when you're the producer, when you're helming the project?
Yeah, it's a big responsibility. And I love when there's thought in the production that makes the music go along with the lyrics. He decided not to put a harmony on a lyric that stressed the feeling of isolation. I think that we've talked about it before, and there's nothing wrong with being like, oh, we threw a harmony there because it sounded cool, or we did this because we were just feeling it. But it's like the extra mile when you're thinking about the lyric and the theme of the song and having the production go along with that. That's I just think that's impressive.
It is impressive. I've brought it up many times where I've said, hey, there's no harmony on this line. I think it makes it sound personal. I think that was the right call. I've never had a guest actually say that was the reason they left it off, though, that I can recall.
Yeah, he was definitely thinking about that. And also, Chris, I know I'm having this experience lately with like new songs. I know you've had this experience too. It was interesting to hear him talk about not being able to put a lot of physical energy into the live performance because they have to focus so hard on playing it. It's such a crazy experience. Like before you have the muscle memory, of course, we both have songs we've been playing for decades or whatever, a long time where you don't even think about what you're playing and you can just, you can go off, for lack of a better way to put it. But when you have a new song and you go out and playing it, you have to really think about what you're playing. And I don't know, I feel like that keeps you on your toes as a musician.
Oh yeah. It does. It's a very fish out of water feeling. I don't particularly like it. I like to have that muscle. I like to go on autopilot, I call it, and kind of do my thing. It is a little stressful, but yeah. And heck, there's times when you'll do a part. We've talked about this where, I'm going to be highbrow here and make this crazy guitar part. It's like, okay, well now I have to sing over it. How am I going to do that live?
Right. Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. I know when I play a new song, especially when it's the first time and it's a little complex or something, when you finish the song and you didn't screw it up, that's a great feeling. And it kind of reminds me, Chris, of the great feeling when we finish an episode and don't screw it up, and then we can flow right into the after party.
The after party?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that thing you find over at ChrisDeMakes.com that's just like a Patreon, but we call it supporting cast. That's right. The after party. You get bonus episodes with Chris and I each week for the price of a cup of coffee or an apple juice at a Cracker Barrel east of the Mississippi. That's right, the after party. And ChrisDeMakes.com. Head over there and please sign up. You'll be supporting the podcast that we know, well, we hope you love.
Yeah, that's right. Are there Cracker Barrels west of the Mississippi? Are there Cracker Barrels in California?
There's a Cracker Barrel in Texas. I know that. So yeah, that's west of the Mississippi.
Okay.
But I just think if there was a Cracker Barrel in California, there may be, that an apple juice would be more than $3.79.
Oh, I'm sure. It would be. Yeah. It would at least be as much as a gallon of gas.
That's right. And hey, if you haven't given me a follow on Instagram, it's Less Than Christy. Give Chris Fafalius a follow there too. He would love it. And go subscribe to my YouTube page. We put a lot of cool stuff up there. Chris puts a lot of cool stuff up there. And I want to thank this week's guest, Rou Reynolds from Enter Shikari, for sitting in with us. We'll catch you next week.
Do you like to laugh, geek out on music, and learn all about that band or artist who had that one song back in the day, but then seemed to fall off the face of the earth? If so, you need to subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Together with an array of interesting and hilarious guests, we do a weekly dive into one-hit wonders like Eiffel 65's Blue, Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci, EMF's Unbelievable, Delamitri's Roll to Me, Los Del Rio's Macarena, Musical Youth's Pass to Dutchie, and even Patrick Swayze's She's Like the Wind. So are you subscribed to One Hit Thunder or what? As Desiree would say, you gotta be. And as K7 would encourage, you gotta come, baby, come and join in on the fun of the One Hit Thunder podcast.
Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come, come. Come, baby, come, baby, baby, come.
Hey there, I am Johnny Christ from Avenged Sevenfold, and I've got a podcast called Drinks with Johnny you're going to want to check out. I sit down with a bunch of different people from all different walks of life, from professional wrestlers to actors, comedians, fighters, musicians, everything in between. I'm just looking to make some friends and have a good time doing it. So if that sounds like something you're into, go check out Drinks with Johnny, streaming everywhere now.